right, then turn left.
Plantation to kind of get you up to speed on what's been going on around here the last several hundred years or so while we're getting up to our first main section. And Charleston itself was named after King Charles II of England, and he had 8 buddies we call the 8 Lords Proprietors that King Charles gave the Carolina land grant to back when they were passing out all this land here in the Americas. They took that land grant, settlers packed up shop in England, crossed the Atlantic, and they finally hit the Americas in this area in 1670. These early settlers, they tried to grow a few things to start out with to see what would grow well in this environment so that they could mass produce, sell, and make some money off of. And they tried oranges, tea, olives, a few other things, but none of that really took off quite like rice did. Rice grows very well in this area, and Charleston was a major exporter of rice back in the day and made a ton of money doing it. Well, the rice, very important to Magnolia Plantation. This is an old rice plantation that had run, and they were growing rice on this property from the early 1700s. Of course, she would then become Anne Drayton. When her father Stephen died, this land would pass fully to the Draytons. And they still own it. We're actually in the 12th generation of Draytons in Old Magnolia, so it's still in that same family, very old. They did get up to around 2,000 acres out here at one point. Today, though, only about 500 acres out here, and that is because the Reverend John Drayton was a plantation owner during the Civil War, and he made the mistake of investing in Confederate stocks and funds. Of course, we know the Confederacy lost the war, making all of that completely worthless and putting him in quite a bit of debt. Not to mention that the Union Army also burned down the plantation house. So after the war, to get out of debt and rebuild his house, John Drayton sold 1,500 acres of this land to a small state mining company. But he did keep 500 acres, and that's the land you're on today. Alright, this is Ravenswood Pond right here. This is where we're going to spot a good bit of our wildlife on the tour. And you know what? We've got an alligator right off the bat, so that's a good sign. Straight out to the left, right up on that wooden platform. You can't miss it, laying right up on the platform there. Decent size gator, not a huge one, but a decent size. And you can see pretty much the whole tail there as well. Which the tail of an alligator will always make at least half its length, a lot of times a little bit over half. And they'll use those tails to propel themselves through the water. That's their main swimming tool. Now you won't typically see alligators move very quick that often, but large adult alligators with long, powerful tails can hit speed swimming of up to about 20 miles per hour. So, you know, unless your name is Michael Phelps, I wouldn't recommend trying to ever outswim one, or at least an adult anyway. Those little spot babies in the seahorse here as we go through. And these islands out here, these are called rookeries, built for the birds. There's actually a bird I'll point out to you that's in the lower center part of that rookery, that large white bird in the lower center there. That's a great egret. And great egrets are some of the taller birds you'll see in the area. Fully grown, they get up to around 3 feet tall with about a 4-foot wingspan. Beautiful birds. They aren't predators though. They'll eat snails. They'll eat snakes, fish, eels, and I've seen them eat small baby alligators as well. So beautiful but deadly. We're going to see quite a few more of those a little bit farther up this trail in another rookery as well. Gators will eat them, and they have painted them, and they usually live to a pretty ripe old age. And these ducks probably don't notice it, but there's a gator right in front of those ducks. Now he's just hanging out, so I don't think they have anything to worry about at the moment. But if I'm a duck, I don't like to be that close to a gator, but they may not even notice it. So you can see the head and that rigid back just right directly in front of those ducks there. Temperature, so they use outside sources like the sun and the water to heat and cool themselves. So they built the platforms out there as sunning boards for the gators and the turtles to climb up on to get some sun when they need it. It helps keep the gators off the pathways, and of course, you know, gives us a great look at anything that might be up on them. Though it doesn't always keep the gators off the pathways, though. They will still occasionally get up on these walkways to sun themselves as well. So you do always want to be aware if you're walking around these areas. 14 15 feet and weigh anywhere from like 500 to 800 pounds or possibly even more. But there are records of male gators getting over 15 feet though. I'll tell you about one here in a moment. Here's another anhinga. We saw this, not this same bird, but this type of bird in the water back there. This is what they look like out of the water. And the reason this one's because they lack an oil gland that most other birds and ducks have that allows water to beat off their feathers. They don't need its own record anyway. They clocked in at 15 feet 9 inches, almost 16 feet, so that's exciting. I don't know if they're feeding their gators in Alabama. It is kind of rare to see one get that big, almost 16 feet, but that one did, so it can and has happened. And we got a bunch of those great egrets you'll see nesting up in the top of that rookery, several in the bottom right corner and some more in the back trees there. Up in the top of that rookery, that's like the Great Egret Hotel right up there. And the females should be laying their eggs now. Maybe a few that haven't, but quite a few that probably have at this point. They'll be hatching here in the next several weeks. Oh, small gator beside us. That'll be a little tough to see, but there is one right at the edge here. Just right at the edge. Yeah, so we got quite a few gators out today. There's a snowy egret doing some hunting over here on the right side without Charles at 2 o'clock. Snowy egret, smaller cousin to the great egret. They look almost identical, except one's just a much smaller version. And of course a gator on the platform out there to the right of that rookery. So yeah, quite a bit of wildlife out today. Now these, they're actually giving a tour of the corner though, so I'm going to be quiet as we go past the tour group so I don't interrupt them too much, but I'll tell you a little bit more about these once we get up past this group in just a moment. These cabins are built in the 1850s, so quite old, and you notice going through here 2 doors per cabin, and there would have been 2 slave families living in each cabin, sharing one time living on one side, one on the other. And depending on the size of each family, you were talking roughly between about 10 to 15 slaves per cabin, so it's pretty tight quarters. You can see these are not that large. The smaller building on the end, that's the old gardener's cottage. Hard to work with because it was so tough and very heavy. But if you had a ship made out of live oak back in the day, you were pretty much top of the line. Not a lot of wood going to be tougher than that. And they got the name live oak because, unlike other oak trees, live oaks are evergreen. They don't lose their leaves in the winter. Most other oak trees are deciduous. They will lose their leaves in the winter. Live oaks do not. They are alive year-round. Nice azalea blooms passing by on the right. We still have plenty of azaleas in full bloom right now. And a whole lot of those live oaks are set up for a small wedding that's going to happen over there later too. So we got several venues for weddings here in Magnolia. It looks like several weddings that are going to happen this afternoon. And what I'd point out there here is all the gray stringy stuff hanging off the trees everywhere called Spanish moss, which you might be familiar with, but what you may not know about Spanish moss is that it's not Spanish and it's not a moss. It's actually an epiphyte or an air plant, which means it gets all the nutrients it needs to survive from the air, the sun, the rain, and the environment as a whole. It does not need a host to grow like regular moss does. So you'll see clinging to all different types of trees, but it's not growing from them. They got the name Spanish moss from the French settlers back in the day. They were making fun of the Spanish. They got the Audubon swamp coming up here on the left. You'll see cypress trees along the bank. You can always tell a cypress by the root system that surrounds it there at the base. Those knobby things, those are called cypress knees. Part of the root system of the tree that sticks above the ground. It helps provide stability for the cypress. They usually find the animal around water. The little saying is, if you have We use cypress, though, with tupelo trees. Tupelos are the ones you see growing out there in the swamp. Those are all tupelos out there. And they do not have the needs like the cypress do, though tupelo trees will produce tupelo honey, which is really good. If you like honey, that is. The Audubon is named after John J. Audubon, a naturalist, painter, and ornithologist that used to visit Magnolia during his long career. Usually out here painting wildlife, mostly birds, being an ornithologist. And you can do a tour out here if you'd like. It's a self-guided tour though, so no tour guide will walk you through there, but there is more of the Audubon you can see down to the boardwalks on your own. You get the swamp tour, what they do is write a 4-digit number code on your map of the ticket booth, put that code in the gate to the left there, and that allows you access. But really nice in the deep swamp, great scenery here for pictures. Usually a good bit of wildlife, you'll spot back in there most days as well. More than that. I'll tell you what though, the Kiowa Tribe, they were very helpful to those original English settlers coming to this area in the late 1600s. They were giving those settlers, when they first arrived here, information on the land, showing them what to grow, to be able to eat to start with, showing them when to grow, when to harvest, when to hunt the area, things like that. So the Kiowa and their knowledge of the land were very important to the early survival of those settlers. Not everybody's so friendly though back then, don't get me wrong. The Yamasee tribe were hostile. They would fight a war against them in the early 1700s here in the Charleston area, called the Yamasee War. So the French and the Spanish were not on great terms with English at that point either. Everybody fighting for land here in the Americas. On top of all of that, pirates were a legitimate concern too. Old Blackbeard himself got a group of pirates together to blockade Charleston Harbor and ransom the city, both in Reach and the Marsh area. But I'll tell you though, there's a lot of preparation work that went into these rice fields before they could grow any rice on them. For this field, they didn't have to clear a ton of land like they did for some of the others, but what they did have to do was build a levee to separate the field from the Ashley River. Where they built that, most of this area out here would have just been the river. And that levee runs the full length of the opposite side of the field, quite long. It had taken them about 2 years to complete that before they could start growing rice on those fields. And then you need water to grow that rice. And the irrigation process was quite the hassle as well, because the Ashley River, in addition to being a tidal river, is also a brackish river, a combination of fresh and salt water. And salt water will ruin rice, so they had to be careful to separate those two. And the way they would do that is there would have been multiple floodgates built along that levee to allow the water from the river into the fields. And there would have been one slave manning each of those floodgates. They were called trunk minders. The floodgates were also called water trunks or rice trunks. And basically what they would do is wait till high tide, when of course the salt waters get pushed from the ocean upstream, combined with the fresh water. And when salt water and fresh water combine, the salt water sinks to the bottom. Saline in it makes it more dense, heavier. And of course the fresh water layers over top of it. So when the tide was going back out, that's when they would open those floodgates and allow that top layer of fresh water to come down into the rice fields. And each one of the trunk minders would have been tasting that water periodically for salt. And as soon as they started tasting large quantities of salt, they would close those floodgates. And that is basically how they would irrigate these rice fields. You need about a foot or so of standing fresh water to grow rice.
God. I don't know.
Remember that chop house that I was like, oh, that's different.
That's like my husband. Yeah, one day it dipped down to 20, 29 or something, and that was enough to nip all these flowers.
Yeah, well, everything I feel, I'm like,
The bud? Right here, guys.
Yeah, the peacocks are really nice.
For everything we've achieved that's greater,
Yeah.
there were ones that want.
Looks like another branch. Yeah. No, I don't think it's a branch.
Hopefully no alligators. You're not being alligators. Oh my god.
221A toward US 17 South, Savannah. Take exit 221A. In a quarter mile, keep right to continue toward US 17 South, Septima Clark Parkway. Keep right, then continue on to US 17 South. Continue on US 17 North for 2 miles. Keep left to continue on US 17 North. Keep left to continue on US 17 North. Continue on US 17 North for 4 miles. In 600 feet, turn left onto East Arctic Avenue. Take the second left onto East Arctic Avenue, then you'll arrive at your destination. You've arrived.
1640 in England, right? The king is King Charles I. People don't think he's doing a very good job, right? So what do? They cut off his head. His son is King Charles II. He is exiled from the country, and Oliver Cromwell in Parliament, and they're taking over for about 10 years, right? Now throughout that time, there are still people who are loyal to the throne, particularly these 8 lords proprietors. These 8 men are businessmen and politicians in London, and they helped get King Charles II restored to the throne around 1660, right? Once they do, he wants to thank them, right, for getting him back in power. Only thing is he didn't have it as a business venture, so we need all those people here. That's what makes our colony a little bit different than places like Jamestown and other settlements of Puritans. The church we've stopped in front of on your left is a circular congregational church. This is the, he wants to see the city, right? And so we're hosting him. So that's, now our mayor at the time, he's holding a ballroom, a banquet, right? Some sort of feast, an event for everybody. And he's worried that President Taft is going to eat up all of the hors d'oeuvres and things that they put out for the guests, and they won't be able to have enough for them. So he tells his boss, and she is the first female licensed realtor in Charleston. When the doors are open, as long as they are today, the doors are open, that means y'all are welcome to come on in, tourists and the public in general, right? So definitely just see them open, take advantage of it. They have beautiful stained glass. We're going to finish talking about Susan Pringle Cross, so the first female licensed realtor, early 1920s. She sees a lot of our buildings are pretty rough shape. We need some restoration, some TLC. So she starts buying up some properties around the city and restoring them to their historical value, right? Now, it starts kind of the preservation movement. She forms the Society for the Preservation of Old Dwellings here in the city, which we now, they have a rule. Anything that's 75 years or old touched by the hand of man, only an act of God can bring down a building or alter it, right? So when they want to put the steeple up on that cathedral, they say you can't do that. It's been up for over 75 years, never had a steeple. You can't just add that on if you want to. And it took them actually going back into their archives, looking at the original blueprints of the church, showing it to them and saying, hey, it was supposed to have a steeple, we just never, got around to completing it, so we're completing the building, we're actually not altering it, right? Now, our mayor at the time, Joe P. Riley, he was a member of that congregation, so I don't think that had anything to do with it. Definitely did, right? Definitely had something to do with it, but of course they get their steeple up there, and if you guys notice, it was made out of metal, and it's hollow in the middle. That's because a lot of our church steeples here in Charleston take a lot of wind damage from hurricanes and things like that. Traditional English gardens we have here in the city on this side. So look at that. All those beautiful outbuildings at the behind the home, and then this garden here. So that paisley teardrop design was very fashionable in early English time. And remember, we're trying to emulate London, emulating Britain. Remember, we started as a business venture, right? So we take a lot of traditional things that were stylish in England, including architecture, landscape architecture, and putting that in our homes here as well. You just look at these houses, right? Imagine having a home here. This is absolutely my favorite. See the stucco over the brick here? That's one of those prime examples. Like I said, that's what we're doing with all of our different homes here. Like I said, we're trying to emulate Britain. They thought brick was a poor man's building material. Well, we don't have any stone, so that's why we did that stucco over brick, which now you'll see in a lot of our different homes here. With the Preservation Society, things like that, they don't like to cover that up. So just over time, it'll start picking off like that. You hear the tropical birds? You guys hear them? It's on this guy's porch as piazza. As we go down, sometimes if you sing it, then they'll come back. To find Luckily, nobody got hurt, right? We discovered it during construction. We were able to get a team out to the school there. So that's we just passed over King Street again. Anybody gone shopping or walking to clean up the area? He has an idea for a luxury hotel with boutique shopping underneath it, right? Now people are really preservation minded at this point, and they're kind of upset. They're like, what is this luxury hotel going to do with the Charleston skyline, right? And he firmly believes in his plan, it's going to work. I'll make some concessions on the design for you, right? This is Market Hall up here on the left. Look at the top. You see ram and sheep skulls at the top of it. Right? Also, this was the meat market. Market Hall was built in 1841 by E.B. White, one of the most prominent architects here in Charleston. The animals were slaughtered in the bottom here. Meat was sold here. Second floor is when the men would enlist for the Civil War up there in that area. That's the start of the market. Meat is here. All these stalls down this way. One more thing. Look at the bricks down here at the bottom. You know, those dark bricks? That's our regular water line in the market. What is that, like a foot and a half of water? Right? That's like a king's tide, or lots of heavy rain, not even a hurricane, right? When the sea level rises, it backs up all of our drains. The water then comes back up out here and empties out into our streets. Right?
Has the little hills right there that makes sense. Say 17, 16. There we go.
But we always forget where it is.
Putain, les vannes, comme il a grandi! Moi, je me rappelle la dernière fois que je l'ai vu, il s'est pété la clavicule. Hey, je te rappelle.
One of them is not.
Look, you come back to Charleston, this place is looking highly recommended.
And then their skirt, they wrap it. And then like they can create like
well, you know, if there's a fucking mountain. She would be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna stay at Scarlet and Collins tonight, and we're like, okay, bye. Literally, she was like telling us that they were pregnant and like while the court like broke, and we're like, oh, that's so exciting. And she's like, yeah, like this is their plan, like this is where they're gonna have to. We're all like, oh my god, like that. What? I mean, they're worth so much money. Different. I just want to, someone's in there. Oh,
Yeah, but like, I don't
Huh?
like,
yeah, I'm like, how